UN does not have any voice on human rights. It's not true. There has been spokesman statements. There's been the Human Rights Commissioner statements on human rights in this country. There was a meeting 3 days ago in Geneva about this country and a lack of access and human rights. So when you want to say nothing is happening, please define what you mean by nothing. It's not, look, with every right comes an obligation to tell the truth. And the truth in many cases comes in different colors depending who is telling it. And you need to try to be faithful to that, because when you say a mistruth, it has impact on people's lives. And I'll continue to say, I'm not saying that this government is a saint, it's very far from it. But there are things that we can do to make it better, and that's the challenge I'm throwing to you. You don't want to build this nation? I don't know where else you want to go. When I stand outside and I hear what you have to say about this country that I know that I can die for as one, then I'm really sad, because you're young. You have education. You have tools. You have a huge future ahead of you. And you're condemning yourself before you started on that journey. And you said you wait until crisis happens before you come. Well, a lot of the time, what people don't know is how much goes into preventing the crisis for how long before it eventually happens. And at the end of the day, there's only so much the UN can do in a country. It's a sovereign country. It's sovereign. You can't just walk into a country and do what you want to do.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain. So.
Oh, yes, it's a beautiful Friday morning. I'm Kaidoki Kilu, and we thought to start with some fire, as it were. And you could feel the passion she was speaking with. And there were a lot of messages in that. Of course, it was longer than that. We just thought to give you a snippet of it. But the overall message first was the passion she has for Nigeria. You could literally touch it. And, she was addressing young people, the majority of young people. So you can either say that message was for the young people in that hall or for the young people in Nigeria, extrapolated to the young people in Nigeria. But she mentioned quite a number of things. And, at that point where she said she could die for Nigeria, that hit differently because, judging from things that a lot of people have said in recent times, you begin to wonder, are they really still loyal to Nigeria? There's still a lot of debate around that, around the nation as it is right now. But she said something also. There needs to be things done by people. People need to do things to make the country better. And I think as much as there are debates ongoing here and there about where you belong to, what your affiliations are, I think maybe that should be the foundation. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do, I believe, should be make the country better, make our nation better. And if whatever it is you're trying to achieve does not have that as a foundation, then I think now is the time for some retrospecting. I'm glad that she largely addressed Nigerian youth rather, and looking at the population of voters, 50.1%, population of the country itself, more than half are young people. So it's important for young people to realize that the Nigeria you'll see in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years is the Nigeria we, and I'm saying we on purpose, is the Nigeria we make today.
Well, it's very interesting words and perspective from her, having seen a lot. And then, when she says she can hear and does see a lot from over there about this country and hears us, and then you ask yourself, whoa, so does that mean that, those who thought they couldn't hear themselves, or, young people have been speaking up a lot in this country, hoping that, the relevant authorities will hear them. So it turns out, I think people can actually hear. But, there's some crucial things there. When she says, look, you already give up before you start, it's such that, unfortunately, there's so many people in this country who don't see things from her perspective in terms of dying for the country. They lost so much faith, and there are tons of them who, even as we speak, are just thinking about, look, I'm just on my way out.
I know people that went out yesterday anyway.
So there you go. And there are just so many of them. And then sometimes, you sit back and ask yourself, wait a minute, I wonder what the older generation think about all of this that is going on. Do they just sit there and, all they do is just hope and just say, well, we've done our best, it's up for you guys? Or do they really sit back there and think, look, we actually have failed in terms of if she, at that point, could say we could die for this country. So What is it that they saw at that time that they've not been able to pass on to the younger generation? So do they think they did the best they could? Do they really think that we did the best they could? No regrets whatsoever. Can they say that? So these are things that you see, but equally important, the population of the country, largely young people. So yes, they do have a voice. And it's not that people will try to tell them, cow them and say, look, you don't have a voice. But that's not true. They do have a voice, and you can actually say something. So look, those words are very deep if we go back and introspect, because no matter what happens, they are the future. It lies in them. We'll have to decide what we need to do moving forward. Nobody will come from outside the country and come and build the country for us.
He actually said that, saying that, I mean, Nigeria is a sovereign country. The UN can only do as much. So for me, that was like, you have to fix your country. Yes, you can call on the UN and other multilateral agencies, but ultimately, the job to fix Nigeria is in our hands. Yeah,
so perhaps if we all begin to see things that way and know that, look, the country doesn't belong to any single individual or groups of persons, that is very clear. No matter how much they try to, anybody else tries to make anyone think or any group think otherwise, that is a fallacy. That much has been said. I mean, so the ball is in our court, as a country in terms of what we do, how we do things moving forward. I mean, we approach people and they tell you, look, we've spoken, what do you want us to do?
What more?
But no, we can't just keep quiet, and it's the only country we've got.
Yeah.
So no matter where else you get to, you may find yourself as a second class or third class citizen in some of those other cases. So, very important. But there are still so many people who can die for this country. There's so many who, no matter what happens, will do what they can to ensure that this country, really takes its pride of place in the Committee of Nations.
I'm tempted to ask, raise your hands if you could die, or send us a mail. Let's see how passionate you are about this country. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is. If people are not happy about what is going on, where they are, there's nothing wrong in people just saying that respectfully. It's a democracy. Ideas have got to contend, and superior ones have the day at the end of the day. Because look, how old is this country? So tenure is about 8 years, and then they move on. The next one comes on. So people need to see things that way. That's why we keep saying it shouldn't be about this party or that party. It's about this country. What can we do to make it work? And if it's not, if people are speaking up, they need to be heard. I mean, what else can anyone say about that? So there you go. Who else needs to tell us that? So there you go. So that said, we'll delve right into the dailies and see how they reflect what is going on. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper today. Allegation of Southerners provoking North. Oh dear, still back and forth about this. Ohaneze Pandev, Afenifere, take Arewa Forum to task. Such comments should be ignored. ACF scribe contradicts Audu Ogbe, that's scribe to Afenifere. Northerners are the ones provoking Southerners. Ohanese. South only seeking egalitarian nation, not war. Pandef. So, these are part of the issues that you just spoke about. And people just need to, they want to get heard. They want things to be tabled and spoken about, issues addressed. Because it could be frustrating when there's so much potentials and, that could compete with the best in the world, and it's not just happening. So you just wonder, how do they go, or where do they go from there? So this back and forth, there you go, it just continues there. Anti-media bills, media can't be cowed. Oshoba, Jolda, CMLA, others. So, and then there's been articles circulating about the honorable gentleman who moved the motion in the first place, about his background, circumstances surrounding that bill, government disowning that, saying, look, we know nothing about that. So there you go. So it's something that questions and more questions need to be asked. If they did ask questions before they got into those positions, and so they wonder, why shouldn't people be able to ask more questions? So there you go. And then take a look at what's on the back page. Mexico friendly. Raw has no faith in home-based players, says Egovoin. Explains why he took charge. Wow, that is tough. Oh dear, that is a tough one for the home-based teams to swallow.
But you know, these things are incremental, let's be honest. I mean, you go around the country, you hardly find a football pitch that has grass as a turf. What you find is mostly sand. And you expect, I mean, we're like magicians in Nigeria with the kind of quality talents we produce, even with the infrastructure we have. I mean, I can count very few communities. In fact, the ones that have maybe astroturfs, that's artificial turfs.
And that is not even...
Exactly, that's not the standard. So you imagine that communities do not have the basic infrastructure for sports development, football development.
You know, because I mean, when you compare, we love the razzmatazz we see elsewhere, but there's a method to the madness, as they say. What is our ethos? What is our playing style? What is the thing about the country when you hear about Nigeria and football? I mean, you know about that of the Dutch, you know about that of the Italians.
No, Brazil.
So what is it? Where do people even learn to play? Is it people just go from streets and then if you discover that's it? So there's so many things that we really need to address. Perhaps the fundamentals, and perhaps his action might just be a way of telling us, you guys,
go back to the
look
roots.
inwards.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune and see what's making the rounds. The lead story is on infrastructure as a whole now, not just sports. And you see, Nigeria is poor. Only option is to borrow, Senate President. The writer says, FG states owe 33.11 trillion naira external and domestic debt. That's according to the MBS. So that's to put it in perspective. Clearly, this has opened another vista of debate, clearly. I mean, we had the debates ongoing, but it seems the president of the Senate just dropped this. And again, this will definitely form a major part of our discussion today. More details.
You just wonder, wow. I mean, when people hear it, they ask, really? Well, it's up to the financials, the people there to, put things out there. If they think otherwise, let GS contend.
So page 33, I mean, for a starter this morning. And there's this one on top of that lead story. Why I stabbed Super TV CEO thrice. 21-year-old female Unilag student. It's on page 34.
Wow.
There's a couple of other stories. Court slates July the 21st to hear suit seeking Buhari's sack from office. That one's on page 37. You wonder what will come out of that one. Well, July the 21st is the date. And right next to that, you see Buhari returns to London for medical checkup. Page 37. This is one. I mean, recall the UNDSG talking about human capital development, young people and the rest. Just at the bottom right corner, you see 13.5 million children cannot access quality education in Nigeria.
Wow.
Just to put that in context, they don't have access to, I mean, the formal type of human capital development. So you wonder what will become of this 13.5 million children in the next 5, 10, 15 years if nothing is done to change this outlook. Well,
those are danger signals right there.
Oh, yes. I mean, we're talking about insecurity today.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine what will happen. Let me just stop there. Page 37 has the details. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, take a look at blueprint next. Keyamo on public works. Paying 774,000 participants may not be feasible. Well, okay. Yeah, that's what you see right there. And then you see 413,630 beneficiaries get 24.8 billion naira allowance. Says program will reflect economy bottom up. Whoa. Okay.
Okay. I think it's worth reading the part that says it may not be feasible to pay the 774,000 because I thought that was the idea and that was the plan.
He thought that's what they were fighting for the last time he said them in the National Assembly. So, so perhaps they should just see the context with which that was said and
I'm just
see
hoping
what you make of it.
I hope I'll be disappointed, really.
Yeah, so who knows? Could it be that paying them in a particular way or paying them at all? So who knows? Something you need to just go see there. And then you have just at the bottom strip there, insecurity. Irabor Pali's retired senior officers on way out. All this shall come to pass, Osinbajo assures. Special squad kills 5, arrests 3 bandits in Niger. So, still working on all of that. And there you go. That's Blueprint this morning. Morning, Mark.
Morning, gentlemen. Let's quickly take a look at Leadership Friday for you. And you see this right there. Citing national interest, PMB shifts ground on restructuring. It's the lead story. Says he will act as soon as NAS finishes process. Pledges to work with all sections to keep Nigeria united. Leaves for UK today on 8th medical trip in 6 years. Well, leadership has been keeping tab, and on the Leadership Friday, they say leaves for UK today on 8th medical trip in 6 years. Well, look at this, 25 years after, INEC set to delineate constituencies, says APGA not disqualified from Anambra poll. That's also there. You have a number of stories just beneath the nameplate. 7 die as FCT records 91 cholera cases. There'll be questions as to whether or not this is any surprise, considering the state of water supply in some areas within the FCT. The FCT is not just Abuja, Amak, as people who are resident here know it to be, but also all the other parts, Buari, Kuje, all of these other parts that mostly have rural dwellers in them. And these places oftentimes have very poor water supply, if at all, any portable water supply. And so it will not be a surprise to some that we see stories like this, FCT recording 91 cholera cases, a totally preventable disease. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Look at this at the bottom here. 8.7 million people need immediate help in Northeast. That's coming from the United Nations. Weak institutions draining states IGR. It's an investigation. Federal government pays 24 billion naira to 413,630 public works beneficiaries. Remember that story about 774,000 workers who were supposed to be recruited in the 774 local governments, 1,000 for each local government. Well, this is how much the federal government is paying to 413,000 plus of them. Why kill Super TV CEO? That's according to a Unilag student. The details are on page 12. We'll leave it there for Leadership Friday.
Well, next is The Guardian. 324,000 children, $27.8 billion lost to conflict in Northeast, says UN. So that's just putting it in context yet again. Boko Haram insurgency, loss of lives may hit 1.1 million by 2030. Recall that the government has said time and again that this Boko Haram has been defeated, technically defeated, but if this projection is saying 2030, that's, we don't look forward to that, definitely, but it's something to definitely chew on. Other regions should learn from Northeast and manage ongoing conflicts. FAO says terrorism denies 68,800 farmers access to agricultural inputs. But when you now take a look at the ripple effect, because those farmers are meant to provide food for perhaps thousands or maybe millions more people. So it's bigger than that, definitely. It starts on the front page, continues on page 6. And you see the picture that shows high demand for water in Maiduguri. In fact, on the day that President Buhari visited recently. So you see the guys with the jerry cans trying to get water.
Wow.
Yeah, there's something on COVID-19. Africa facing third wave COVID-19 surge, WHO warns. Well, yeah, that's what the WHO says. A couple of other writers really just to tell more about that story. You can find more details on page 6. Let me just take this one. How $300 million NNPC fund was secretly lodged.
Wow.
Yeah, it's on page 3. Want to find out more details. That's the Guardian.
Have money.
Oh, yeah. It's a Guardian for you.
And let's quickly take a look at New Telegraph and see what they have on the front page. Nigeria poor must borrow for infrastructure development. That's attributed to the Senate President Lawan. Assures NAS want to prove frivolous plans, frivolous loans. Says increase in crude price not cause for joy. Akabwezi, Nigeria must sell assets, cut costs to end borrowing. Those are the late stories on the front page for you of New Telegraph, but they also have a few others. COVID-19, federal government worried over global vaccine supply, says 4,708 out of 3 million vaccinated persons suffered adverse side effects, insists no vaccination-related death recorded in Nigeria. So it looks like there is something at least good about the vaccination drive in Nigeria. 4,708 out of 3 million vaccinated persons suffered side effects, which some people might say is not such a huge figure. It's a huge number, yes, 4,708 people. But when you compare that with 3 million people, that figure then becomes small. And you have a number of other stories there. Telecom operators disconnect 4.7 million lines. Active mobile subscriptions plunged to 186.7 million. That's also there. Rep Saman Amechi, MPA management, over 166 billion naira revenue. And you have a number of other stories just beneath. Well, something to share here. 27 years after, federal government honors 1994 Nations Cup winners. It's taken 27 years, but as they'll say, better late than never. Allocate houses to Rufai, Chukwu, Keshi, others. Don't forget that some of those people have passed, so they're not exactly alive to reap the benefits, but at least their children or whoever it is, their loved ones, will at least be able to benefit. The good thing is that a government, which is supposed to be a continuum, hasn't forgotten its promise to those who did the nation proud. So maybe something to share, but also something to say, how can we avoid this in future? That it doesn't take 27 years after a promise has been made before it is fulfilled. Gentlemen.
Well, yes, indeed. I think it's a very good to know, to see that those are the people who sweat for this country, who did all they can, got this country such huge honors, and several years after, I mean, previous government, sometimes you wonder what happens up there that they couldn't do something just as, can I use the word, as simple as this, just to honor them. But yeah, it is indeed good, and good to see. It's a very, when people see that, it gladdens their heart that you can actually do something for this country and then be honored and recognized. It's way to go. Let's take a look at News Direct. 2023 confusion. Senate backs creation of additional constituencies to support INEC in defining electoral boundaries, even though you're on the 2023 confusion. What's confusion? Okay, well, I think you have an idea of what it's about, really. But while they are that, of course, you'll always get people asking the question, what is going on with the Electoral Act? They need to get a lot of traction on that particular one. After all, if they say they're using NIN to discover so many fake candidates and fake things here, so the evening is working. I know we'll always talk about it. INEC, maybe in the National Assembly now, why can't we use NIN to vote? You know, there you go. That is it. We'll look at some of the dailies here today. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
It's the Anambra State All Progressives Grand Alliance APGA Party Convention 2021, held at the Professor Dora Akunyili Women's Development Center in Awka, Anambra State. A boisterous atmosphere here as the candidates, as well as hundreds of accredited delegates and other party members and leaders from across the state, are all gathered here, clad in the party's brilliant colors.
Now, when you vote, you surrender your delegate tag.
There's a crucial assignment before the party, and that's to choose the candidates that would represent APGA at the forthcoming November 6 governorship election in the state. Voting soon begins as the accredited delegates come forward to make their choice. Voting over, and it's time to announce the winner and presents the certificate of return.
I hereby declare Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo as the duly elected governorship candidate of APGA.
Appreciating and congratulating all stakeholders for the peaceful conduct of the exercise, the governor notes that the party's journey to victory has just begun as he introduces the party's flag bearer.
I want to commend the National Working Committee, the State Working Committee, all the APGA members, particularly the delegates, for the peaceful conduct of this primary. It is very exceptional, you know, and just know that our job has just started, and we are going to do 21 over 21 again.
Beginning his speech on a note of appreciation for the overwhelming support, Mr. Soludo, a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, says it's time for him to give back to his people.
I believe it is now time to come home and serve my people. As a poor village boy who has been especially blessed by God, that's Charlie Mwambwafo, I desire to give back to society through selfless public service. If you then, the Anambra people, graciously employ me as your chief servant come November, I hope to deploy all the global and national experiences and networks, as well as the local experience and knowledge as a village boy to make you proud.
APGA may have chosen the candidate to represent it at the November 6 Anambra governorship poll. However, the onus is on the larger body of voters across the state to determine who eventually leads the state for another 4 years.
And that's the matter which we find interesting this morning. It's no longer news that Anambra will be going to the polls come November the 6th this year. However, what is news is that some political parties, from INEC's point of view, might not be able to participate. The question is why? We have with us this morning Mr. Festus Okoye, who is the National Commissioner, Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee at INEC. And we also have with us Senator Victor Ome, who is a former National Chairman of APGA. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome, viewers.
Well, I'm wondering, on Wednesday was when we saw that particular Congress take place, that APGA, conducted, and eventually it threw up Professor Charles Soludo as the candidate of the party. Did you participate in that particular Congress?
Myself?
Yes.
I thought there was a video clip shown now, and you saw this story recap everywhere.
We had to be sure it was you.
No, it was me. It can't be any other person other than me.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
I was there.
And you thought the process was free and
voted
fair?
Completely free and fair. All the aspirants that took part in the primary, 4 of them that were cleared to go to that stage, they were all there. Well seated, voted, had their agents. In fact, one of the aspirants opted to be his own agent. So he monitored the counting and recording of the votes. And when everything was done and result declared, they were all satisfied and they left.
Were the processes followed running up to the conduct of the congresses?
All the processes? Completely. You should have known by now that APGA is a party that is a stickler to due process. I was chairman of this party for 10 years, and you would expect that still being a member of that party, I will always associate myself with things that are legitimate, legal, due process. I was satisfied that all the processes were followed leading to that final day of selecting the candidate. And I participated fully and voted. So all the processes were followed, and the party followed all the guidelines, including its own guidelines and the INEC guidelines for that election, including the Electoral Act, provisions in the nomination of candidates. So we are not in breach of any aspect of the requirements of the law.
Well, so what is this we hear, Mr. Okoye, about APGA might not be able to participate in the forthcoming Anambra polls?
Well, the commission has never said that APGA will not participate in the polls. The political party itself gave the Independent National Electoral Commission the statutory and requisite 21 days notice of its intention to conduct his party primaries for the purposes of nominating a candidate for the November 6th governorship election. And they stated that they are going to conduct their state congress on the 23rd day of June 2021. The Independent National Electoral Commission monitored that particular congress where this nomination was made. However, what the commission said was that the commission received 2 letters. One letter from a legal practitioner from a law firm, and also wrote one letter to the national chairman of APGA. In one of the letters, the legal practitioner asked the commission for a copy of our monitoring report in relation to the World Delegates Congress that the political party conducted. And we said we didn't monitor that particular Delegates Congress, and we don't have any report to give. Then the secretary to the commission also wrote a letter to the national chairman of APGA, drawing his attention to the fact that the party submitted the delegates list to the commission, but that the commission did not monitor the processes relating to that particular delegates list. And as a regulatory body, the commission has the right and the constitutional and legal right to issue such letter to the party, because we are a regulatory body. And when a political party has done something we believe is not right, or is going in a different direction or a wrong direction, we have the right to draw the attention of that particular political party to such an infraction. And that was exactly what we did. There was nowhere in that particular letter where the commission said that APGA will not participate in the November 6th governorship election.
So what you have a problem with right now is the congresses that threw up the delegates that eventually participate in this final congress.
That was what we drew the attention to.
Okay,
Yes.
and there's been no response to that.
Well, the resident electoral commissioner for Anambra has been in touch with the national chairman of APGA relating to...
Let us confirm who the
Yes.
national chairman of APGA is as INEC recognizes.
There is no issue relating to who the commission recognizes. If you go to our website and on our files, the national chairman of APGA is Victor Oye, and the national secretary, according to what we have in our files, is Labram Maku. So there's no issue relating to the leadership of the political party. In fact, it was the same national chairman of APGA, Victor Oye, that the commission made available to from EC9 and from EC9B, relating to the personal particulars of candidates and relating to the names of nominated candidates. So there is no issue relating to the leadership of APGA, and we are not aware if there's any challenge, and we are not aware whether any other thing has happened. If any other thing has happened relating to the leadership of the party, the commission will be aware, and such thing happening in relation to a convention or a congress where certain decisions have been taken must be made available to the commission, and the commission must monitor it. So there is no issue relating to the leadership of the party.
Okay, so how were the delegates for this particular congress selected or elected?
Well, it is very good that we're having this program, and a national commissioner in charge of information is here with us. From the way he has presented it, it is very clear that the commission tried to create a problem for APGA. By that letter, the secretary to the commission wrote to the national chairman. Because if I can read from it, let me have your letter. Is your letter?
Yes, I have it here.
Yeah, bring it. So I tell you where you created the problem.
Oh, well, I hope the letter is here. You ought to have your own letter.
Well,
I have the letter, no problem. I have the letter. I need for emphasis, no problem. I know you showed me a copy before.
No, you can have it. I have the letter
so
here.
that's the letter because it's a public document. You see, the letter written by the secretary to the commission says, this is to notify you that the records of the commission indicates that APGA did not duly notify the commission of the date of the Congress, where the ad hoc delegates were elected as required by Section 85 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended. Accordingly, paragraph 3, accordingly, the Commission is unable to confirm if the ad hoc delegates list submitted by your party is the outcome of a democratic process as required by Section 87.7 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended. So this third leg of this letter issued by the secretary to the commission is a very weighty letter. You know, if you say that you cannot vouch...
Just a moment.
Yes.
It is, they said they cannot confirm.
They cannot confirm.
If you followed a democratic process. How is that creating problems for you?
It is creating a problem because you are laying a ground for somebody to go to court, you know, and this issue needed not to arise at all. By the INEC guideline given to political parties for conduct of primaries to nominate candidates for election, look at, this is your, I hope this is your own.
Well, I have my own,
so I hope this
that.
is from the commission. That's what I'm trying to establish. You're a lawyer.
Yes, I am.
So is this what you issued?
I'm a senior lawyer.
Okay, very good. Okay, if I go to page 3, I'll read out something to you because the commission says the party did not duly notify them of this election, of this Congress they are talking about now.
The one that produced the delegates.
The delegates, yes. Look at it. 4.3. Every political party shall publish the venues, dates, times, guidelines, procedures, and other relevant information of its primaries for the purpose of nominating candidates for the party in at least 2 national newspapers, not later than 10 days before the date of the event.
For the purpose of nominating?
Yes.
For the purpose of nominating who?
The candidate now for the election, you know, for the primary election. And APGA, in compliance with this guideline issued by INEC, apart from writing, then giving the notice on 26th of April, that 26th of May, yes, that our Congress will take place on 23rd of June to elect the candidate. It proceeded to publish, as INEC demanded, in 2 national newspapers. Look at it. This one is this day of 21st of April, 2021.
Your point is taken, sir.
No, it's not taken. People should see, because we know who is right.
That is not what is in contention.
No, it's in contention. Notice. That's what they wrote.
Senator,
So
that is not what is in contention. What is in contention?
Just allow me. This is the notice. I'm arriving at something. This is this day. Public notice. It's a public notice. A lawyer. He knows what a public notice is. And here we stated that the Special World Congress for election of ad hoc delegates within the 326 wards in Anambra State shall be June 15, 2021. This public notice, this is this day, is also in the Daily Sun, as they demanded. INEC demanded. They must publish it in all these newspapers, 2 newspapers. Look at Daily Sun of 22nd
So
April.
you did notify?
We notified, because this public notice, INEC is also a public institution. So this is also a notice to them. Everybody in Nigeria. So this issue of whether we issue notice or not is of no moment.
You notified, just a moment, sir. You notified the public in 2 national dailies. On what day was that?
21st April, 2021. That is 55 days. And their guideline says not later than 10 days. We give 55 days notice.
The ad hoc...
And 54 days. In the case of Daily Sun, the other one is 55.
The ad hoc delegates Congress held when?
15th of June. 15th as stated in this publication. 15th of June. So it's a public notice, including INEC.
But no specific notice to INEC?
If you give somebody notice, they have taken the notice. This is a public institution. And they demanded that we should do this. We have done that. Aside from that, we are not supposed to even do that. Because making an issue out of this notice in their letter shows that they're not getting it right. The Electoral Act itself, in Section 877, did not even prescribe the mode of delegates, a selection of delegates that will vote in indirect primary. If a party chooses indirect primary as a system of nominating their candidates, the Act did not specify how the party would generate those delegates. It never mentioned that no delegate anywhere in that Electoral Act. I stand to be corrected by him. Then if the party in its own guideline chooses the way the delegates will emerge, then they go through that method, those delegates. And we chose nomination of 2 ad hoc delegates. One will come from the Ward Executive Committee. They will nominate that person. That will be 326. Then the party itself in the ward will nominate 1 person. They will now add statutory delegates. I'm a statutory delegate by virtue of the fact that I was former national chairman of the party and a member of the board of trustees. So these are the delegates that were compiled. And on 15th, they elected the 2 ad hoc delegates, added to the statutory delegates that voted on the 23rd of June. So the issue of saying whether they monitored, whether the party complied with democratic processes and all that is of no moment. And the issue of notice they're talking about has been well settled by the Supreme Court in the judgment they delivered on the 8th of January 2016. In the case of Mahmoud Shinkafi against Abdulaziz Yari, issue of notice was dealt with conclusively by all the justices of the Supreme Court on that 8th day of January 2016 judgment. Even where you fail to give notice to this commission of any of those congresses mentioned in the Act, it does not disqualify you from participating in the election. You pay a fine of 500,000 naira only on conviction. If you are found not to have complied with any of those things, you pay 500,000 naira fine.
So let me.
So the issue of notice does not arise. I don't know why this letter was actually written at all, because there was no ambiguity.
Do you want to quickly respond to that?
No, I think he's completely wrong.
How?
Section 85 of the Electoral Act makes it very clear, makes it mandatory for any political party wanting to nominate candidates by whatever means, whether through a congress, through a meeting, through a convention, or whatever, to give the commission notice of its intention to do so. Now, Section 85, subsection 2, even goes further to say that if a party does not give the commission that particular statutory and requisite notice...
In the Electoral Act?
Yes, I have it here. That if the political party fails to give, and the commission is aware that such a congress, a meeting, or a convention is taking place, that the commission can still go there and monitor it. That's what the law says. Secondly, if you look at Section 86 of the Electoral Act, it says that the commission shall keep records of the activities of all registered political parties. So we have a duty to keep record of what political parties are doing, because we are a regulatory body. Therefore, if a member of the party approaches the commission and says, can I have a report of your monitoring activities in relation to this particular political party? We have the right to say, oh, this is the report we monitored or we did not monitor. We were giving notice or we are not giving notice. And that's exactly what we have done. Now, this commission is aware of the provisions of Section 285, subsection 14 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, in the Constitution, what the Constitution is very, very clear.
285, what does it say?
285, 14, where it defines what a pre-election matter means. And it says that in a pre-election matter, any aspirant who complains that any provision of the Electoral Act has been breached, or the guidelines issued by a political party for the democratic nomination of its candidates has been breached, can approach the cause for redress. It also gives political parties that are not APGA the right to also approach the cause if they believe that any law has been breached or any regulation or rules have been breached. What we have done is to draw the attention of APGA to the fact that we did not monitor that delegates Congress. We never, in any letter we wrote, said that APGA will not participate in the governorship election. If we didn't want them to participate, we wouldn't have gone to go and monitor the Congress they held on the 23rd. In fact, on the second day of July, we are going to give our access code to our nomination portal to the Victor Oye-led APGA for them to upload the list of their nominated candidates and their personal particulars. If any aspirant has an issue with the way they have conducted their primaries, or any other political party has an issue with what they have done, it is a constitutional right of that particular political party to go to court, either under Section 285 of the Constitution or under Section 87, subsection 9 of the Electoral Act. So we don't have an issue with the party.
The reason why you do not have a report right now is that what?
Because
they say that they issued a public notice, and that INEC is a public institution by virtue of their... Let me finish now.
A national chairman of a party ought to know the mode of giving INEC notice.
Let me add.
Yes.
He says that by virtue of your being a public institution, you ought to have seen the public notice, unless, of course, you didn't take note of that public notice, and as such, you were not able to attend.
If the day we begin communication with political parties only on the basis of newspapers, only in the marketplace, we cease to be a regulatory agency. We are a regulatory commission. You see, some political parties think that they are the ones regulating the commission. No, the commission regulates them. We set the mode through which we interact with them, because we are established by the Constitution to organize, undertake, and supervise all elections. So if the only mode of communicating with the commission is through newspapers, asking why did the party give the commission in writing the 21-day statutory notice of the Congress they organized on the 23rd day of June. So let us not go
just a moment. Isn't that because there are specific guidelines asking the political parties to notify INEC directly, not through public notices in that instance?
Section 85 is very clear. It says that whatever you do, whether it's a meeting, you're organizing a congress or a convention, so long as it contains the issues relating to the nomination of candidates, that you must notify the commission. That's what the law says.
Let me tell you, this judgment, since he's a lawyer, I don't need to stress myself so much. I don't need to stress myself so much to explain this point.
But then before you explain your point, sorry, Senator Ume.
Yes.
Before you explain your point, the question I would like to pose is, was APGA deliberately trying to be mischievous by saying, you know what, since it does not specifically say that we have to notify INEC, of the delegates, the ad hoc delegates Congress, we might as well put it in the papers, and if they don't see it there, that's their problem.
Let me tell you what it is. The decision in this judgment, which he is also aware of, has said that it is not mandatory. The word used in Section 85 is shall give them notice. The Supreme Court has said that shall does not mean mandatorily. Even if you give them notice, they may or may not come. So it's not a condition that you must fulfill, so to speak. Yes, it's in the judgment. It is not mandatory. And where you fail to give them that notice, failure to give that notice, even that you are going to do primary at all, that Supreme Court has said that it doesn't invalidate the primary. It doesn't invalidate the primary because there is a provision for fine for failure to comply with any of those things, assuming that what he's saying.
From what he has said, he hasn't said that the primaries have been invalidated.
No, this is a public. You are dealing with the public. Election is a very sensitive thing.
Indeed.
He knows that when they issue that letter caused so much commotion everywhere that APGA has been ruled out of the election. It's only now that he's explaining that it's not like that. When the secretary to the commission signs a letter, it's a decision of the commission that it's conveying. It's not a departmental information. So I have worked with INEC for so long, and any time I see a letter signed by the secretary to the commission, you treat that letter with weight that it deserves. It's the commission that is issuing that letter, not the secretary. So when they put it out, there was a flurry of confusion everywhere that APGA has been ruled. Even Vanguard carried it in a headline. APGA has been ruled out of the November 6th governorship election. Even yesterday, that a report came out. Media aid to the chairman of the commission said they have no decision on APGA. It was published, and also said that they didn't disqualify APGA. They have to retract this letter for you to convey the full import.
Gentlemen, we have to take a break. We have to take a break. We will come back. We will come back, and then we will take what the implications of this letter ought to be. Because how something, what you release and the perception of the public could be two different things.
Two different things, yes.
So we will talk about that when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. We're talking matters arising in the wake of APGA's governorship Congress held just this week, and we have with us in the studio Mr. Festus Okoye, National Commission and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee at INEC, and we also have with us Senator Victor Ume, former National Chairman of APGA. They're both here in our Abuja studios. That letter which INEC issued to APGA is what has caused a lot of fury.
Yes.
The reaction which we eventually saw in the public and in the media was not what INEC intended, was it?
Let me explain. On the 3rd day of June 2021, the commission, through the secretary, wrote to the leaders of all the registered political parties in relation to the Anambra governorship election. And the first paragraph of the letter says, as we approach the period provided for the conduct of party primaries towards the emergence of candidates for 2021 Anambra governorship election, the commission hereby reminds political parties on the imperative of holding transparent and democratic primaries. Now, the last paragraph of the letter says, the commission's monitors are to report on the adoption of democratic principles as well as the level of compliance with relevant provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, 1999 as amended, the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, and extant regulations and guidelines issued by the Commission. So this is not the first, this letter you are talking about is not the first letter the Commission is writing to the political parties. The specific letter he's complaining about was written to the chairman of APGA, drawing his attention to a delegates list which he submitted to the commission. And we said, look, we have seen the delegates list you submitted to the commission. We are not in a position to verify the authenticity or otherwise, and under what circumstances those delegates were elected, because we did not monitor it. And then a legal practitioner also wrote to us saying, give us the report of your having monitored that.
You have stated the background, Mr. Okoye. Yes. What I'm trying to say is this. As a result of that letter which you wrote to the APGA national chairman, there have been implications from that letter. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, these implications or these deductions have been drawn to the extent that people are thinking that APGA has been disqualified by your commission, for not complying with certain regulations. But from what you have explained now, that was not what you intended. Is that correct?
There was no paragraph of the letter that talked about disqualification. What we said was that we drew the attention to the fact that they did not give us notice of the delegates congress which they conducted. And we also drew the attention to the fact that we did not monitor that delegates congress. So if there are deductions, if people are doing interpretation, it has nothing to do with the commission. The commission is a regulatory body. If the law gives us the power to sanction, definitely we will sanction. So if the law has not given us the power to sanction, we will not sanction. The law has given aspirants and political parties the leverage and the mandate and the constitutional and legal right to challenge whatever has happened in the party primaries in relation to APGA. It has not given the commission the power to disqualify any APGA candidate. And we have not said that we have disqualified anybody. So if APGA, the issue of nominating candidates is completely at their discretion. Our nomination portal we open on the 2nd day of July. If APGA has conducted party primaries and refuses to submit the list and personal particulars of their candidate, the commission cannot go and force them to submit.
But let me confirm with you that you are satisfied with the conduct of the Congress which they conducted. Are you?
The one we monitored?
Yes.
Yes.
You are satisfied with
yes,
that?
That is the crux of the matter.
We sent monitors to that particular Congress, and they will monitor and issue a report to the which the commission will certify.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me confirm what the implication of the letter which you now wrote to the national chairman of APGA. What was that letter intended to achieve? When you say we cannot confirm if the process which led to the nomination of your ad hoc delegates was democratic, what is the implication of that, given that a Congress has already happened, which you are satisfied with?
No, the letter was written before the 23rd.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay.
When it was the party that submitted the list to the commission.
When was your letter dated? What date was yours?
18th June.
Our letter was dated 18th June.
Delivered on 21st.
So what were you hoping will happen as a result of your letter?
No. We are a regulatory body. What we have done is to draw the attention to the fact that we are unable to certify the fact that the World Delegates Conference or Congress, which they organized, was democratically conducted, and that those who were supposed to be the delegates were democratically elected.
As a result of that, yes.
Because a legal practitioner has written saying, please, can we have your report relating to your having monitored these primaries and this delegates congress? And we say we don't have a report. So how can we confirm something we don't know anything about?
You would have stopped at that. Excuse me.
No.
You would have stopped at that. You would have told them that you have no report. You didn't monitor it.
Even during your party primaries, if we observe that something is going wrong, we can draw your attention to what is going wrong and ask you to rectify it.
You are alluding to something going wrong again, and you said there was nothing wrong.
Let me flip this. Just a moment, Mr.
For clarity.
Senator,
for clarity, no, because the public are listening to us and they're watching us. He's trying to make a heavy weather about notice to the commission. We don't need to dissipate energy on this because he is aware, he's a lawyer. On this judgment I'm talking about the failure to give notice, the Supreme Court has interpreted this section 85 he's talking about. It says if you don't give notice at all for the primary, you're talking about adult delegates. If you don't give notice that you are going to conduct primary, where the candidate will be nominated, as clearly stated in section 85, if you don't do that, it does not vitiate your process. It says there's nothing more to it than to pay a fine of 500,000 naira. So why are you making a foundation that nobody gave you notice? And they were respondents in this appeal. They should know that when I was the party chairman, the commission does not write a letter through its secretary without the legal department seeing it. I can tell you, that's the procedure. They make a draft, because any letter the commission sends out becomes a document that can be used at all times.
You will explain a little further,
yes,
Senator Ome.
Yes.
Let me quickly flip this to my colleagues, because I'm sure they're dying to put the questions through. Gentlemen.
Well, yeah, Mr. Okoye, if you could just clarify, the legal practitioner in question, well, one wonders, was there a bone of contention when he wrote, and then people wonder what his status is for INEC to have taken that position in the first place?
Well, the legal practitioner wrote on the 16th day of June, 2021, and his letter was titled Application for Certified True Copy of Evidence of 21 days notice for the Special World Congresses for the election of ad hoc delegates for the nomination of governorship candidate by the Victor Oye-led All Progressive Grand Alliance, held on 15th day of June 2021, and Commission's report on the said Congress, a request under the Freedom of Information Act 2011. And we simply replied that this is to notify you that the Commission did not receive the statutory 21 days notice for the Special World Congress for the election of ad hoc delegates for the nomination of APGA Anambra governorship candidate from the Victor Oye-led All Progressives Congress. Accordingly, the Commission did not monitor the Congress. As such, there is no monitoring report by the Commission. That's exactly what happened. So it was based on the request from a legal practitioner that our secretary responded to the letter.
Okay, so any legal practitioner can just write it, then you're bound to, of course, respond to that. Is that the case?
Definitely, yes.
Okay, so if you then say that you don't have any problems with the processes that have been conducted, so what Mr. Victor is asking, isn't it then logical for the Commission to either clarify or withdraw the letter such that nobody reads any unintended meaning or consequences to it?
No. We can't withdraw the letter. There are two issues involved here. One, the issue of the Delegates Congress which the political party organized. And two, the issue of the State Congress where they nominated their flag bearer. In relation to the issue of the Delegates Congress, what we said was that the party did not give the Commission notice of that particular Delegates Congress. And therefore, we are unable to confirm under what mode and in what circumstances those delegates were elected or selected or nominated. But in relation to the State Congress that was organized on the 23rd day of June 2021, the party gave the commission the requisite notice, and we sent monitors to go and monitor that particular Congress, and the monitors are going to issue a report. And based on our guidelines and on our procedures, we are going to give the Victor Oye-led APGA the access code to the nomination portal, which we opened on the 2nd day of July 2021 for the purposes of uploading the personal particulars and the list of his nominated candidates. So that's exactly what we have said. They have not denied the fact that they did not give us notice to come and monitor their World Delegates Congress. They have not denied that. But the truth of the matter is that under Section 285, subsection 14 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and also under Section 87, subsection 9 of the Electoral Act, it is the aspirants that have the legal right and the legal wherewithal to complain that since certain provisions of the Electoral Act or the guidelines issued by the political party has been violated, that they want to go to court to go and ventilate their grievances. Or any other political party can do that. In relation to the commission, as far as we are concerned, we know who the national chairman of APGA is, and we monitored the State Congress where they nominated their candidate. So we are going to give them an access code. They will upload the list of their candidates and their personal particulars. If any member of their party or any political party has issue with the Delegates Congress and so on and so forth, that particular political party or that particular aspirant reserves the right to go to court to ventilate his or her grievances. The commission has done its own duty, and we have drawn the attention to the fact that we didn't monitor their Delegates Congress.
Okay, Mr. Okoye, just a moment. Let's allow Senator May respond to that before we just get another clarification from you. Please go ahead, Senator.
There's no point trying to make a case for somebody who did not approach you for your opinion. Nobody approached you among the aspirants you are mentioning now that they have the power to go and challenge the process. Are you preempting them? When you wrote that you cannot vouch for that the delegates were elected through a democratic process, you are speculating because you didn't attend, you didn't monitor. Why are you speculating? And you are now saying that the Section 285 of the Constitution has donated the right to other political parties to come in and question this. You are aware that nomination of candidates is the internal affairs of the political party in question. Why are you not suggesting that another political party, if they want to question our delegate Congress, that they can go to court? You are laying a foundation for people to come and they sue APGA. It's not right. So what I'm telling you now is that your letter is misconstrued and is mischievous. You should simply withdraw it because there's no way you can maintain that letter and deny that you are not trying to cause confusion for APGA. The letter you wrote to the legal practitioner, you didn't tell the legal practitioner whether the delegate Congress followed the democratic processes. You stopped correctly where you stopped. You don't have the report. Then writing the national chairman telling him you cannot vouch, you are laying a foundation for mischief. That's what I'm saying. And I have said that the cardinal issue in this disagreement is notice to INEC, which I've told you that even the Supreme Court decision is law itself on this matter. You cannot begin to say, oh, we didn't receive, we didn't monitor. Therefore, the implication is that those delegates you used may not be democratically selected. You're overshooting what you're supposed to do as a regulator and monitor. It's our internal affairs, and we can select delegates without doing ad hoc Congress. Yes.
So just a moment.
Statutory delegates can vote.
Right. Just a moment.
No.
Let me take this back to Mr. Okoye.
If you choose indirect primary, the mode of selecting the delegates to that primary was not prescribed. It didn't say you must hold a Congress to choose delegates. He's talking about delegates coming. That's what the Electoral Act said. You don't add anything. And if the Supreme Court has interpreted Section 85 of the Electoral Act on the effect of failure to give notice, INEC can no longer make a heavy whether they receive notice or not.
Okay, Senator Ome, let me take this back to Mr. Okoye.
Misled
Right.
into believing that APGA didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Okay, let me take this back to Mr. Okoye.
Everything.
We get the point.
The one you demanded that we should do. We should publish in the newspaper. Our chairman and the secretary made sure that they published this in 2 newspapers as you demanded.
Senator Ome, you made that point. Let me take this back to Mr. Okoye.
And these dates were clearly stated there. You know?
Yes, we get the point. Just a moment. Let me take this back to Mr. Okoye, just pointedly now. So, not getting a notice, as you have said, from the party for that special ward congress that, elected the delegates and subsequently not monitoring that particular event, does it make it less democratic for INEC?
No,
that's for Mr. Okoye, actually.
He has a point. He doesn't want to come out clearly. He doesn't. Let me answer
let Mr. Okoye respond.
The commission is a creation of the constitution and a creation of the law. Section 87, subsection 7 of the Electoral Act provides that it says a political party that adopts the system of indirect primaries for the choice of its candidate shall clearly outline in its constitution and rules the procedure for the democratic election of delegates to vote at the convention, congress, or meeting, in addition to delegates already prescribed in the constitution of the party. Now, but what is important is subsection 8, which says that a political appointee at any level shall not be an automatic voting delegate at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of nomination of candidates for any election, except where such a political appointee is also an officer of a political party. These are the things that the law has mandated the commission to go and monitor and make sure that political parties comply with the provisions of the law. So if a political party does not comply with the provisions of the law, it is our duty and responsibility as a regulator to write a report and keep our report. If any individual or any political party challenges what has been done by a particular political party in court, and we are invited to come and say what we know or to come and present our report, definitely we'll go and present our report in relation to our own observation and our own monitoring of that particular process. And that's exactly the point.
Okay, but Mr. Goy, could you tell us then?
Said that APGA has been disqualified.
Okay, the Congress that the commission monitored, how did you get the notice?
The political party gave the commission the 21-day statutory notice of its intention to organize a state congress on the 23rd day of June 2020.
How, in what manner?
They wrote to the commission.
Directly?
Yes.
Or published in dailies?
You see, my colleague here is a former national chairman of a political party, of APGA. He knows the procedure of communicating with the commission. So for him to come and begin to say that he can they now only communicate with the commission on the pages of newspapers and is belittling the constitutional and regulatory powers of the commission, and is completely unacceptable. He knows the mode and method of communicating with the commission.
Okay, just before we get Senator Ome to respond, there's this question also that you seem to have not responded, Mr. Okoye. They talk about the Supreme Court judgment that ruled about notice, how notice is given. He is of the opinion, from that judgment, that a notice in the pages of the newspaper might suffice. What's your take on that, or the Commission's position on that?
I don't think it will suffice. Every registered political party is obligated under the Constitution and the law to give to the Commission a copy of its Constitution and also a copy of all the constitutive instruments which that particular political party uses. Anytime there's any change in terms of their leadership or any amendment to their Constitution, they are also supposed to give a copy of that particular amendment or that particular change to the Commission. All the registered political parties communicate with the Commission through letters, and they know the mode through which they communicate to the commission. The 18 registered political parties that want to contest the Anambra governorship election gave the commission notice. What some of the political parties did was that in the same notice, those who organized delegates conference gave the commission notice of the dates for their delegates congress at the base level, their state congress at the state level, and so on and so forth in one notice. But in relation to APGA, they only said, "Oh, we are going to organize state congress on the 23rd day of June 2021." But he knows the mode of communicating with the commission, and it is through letters.
Senator Ome, he said that for the primaries, your party wrote directly to INEC, but you say that for that, that ward conference or congress rather, you didn't need to write to INEC. That the notice in the pages of newspaper was enough. So why the disparity, really?
Well, like I told you, Section 85 of the Electoral Act spoke about primary to nominate the candidate. Primary to nominate the candidate. And that was what the APGA did. 23rd of June was the date to nominate the candidate. And they got that notice. The rest of things are internal preparations for the party. And we didn't hide it. According to their guidelines, said we should publish what we intend to do in 2 national dailies. And these 2 public national dailies received this public notice and published them. So trying now to say that the ad hoc delegate, which no place the Electoral Act mentioned at all, no section of the Electoral Act mentioned ad hoc delegate. What he spoke about are delegates, not ad hoc delegates. So when you receive a notice for the nomination of the candidate, the primary to nominate the candidate, it is sufficient. The Supreme Court that interpreted that act also said that notice is not mandatory. It is law. It is not mandatory. So if you, through your communications, whether national chairman or secretary to the commission, writing back and forth, it does not set aside what the law has said. So we gave these notices, published them in the newspapers, and conducted actually this delegate congress, because I participated on the 15th. I was getting ready to go to the World Congress, and I saw people on television sacking our national chairman. I ignored them because I knew they were jokers.
But you haven't quite responded to, because in the same public notice which
Yes.
you issued to the general public
Yes.
for the Congress,
Yes.
that's the governorship Congress.
Yes.
That was where you put the notification.
That is schedule of activities.
Yes, that
It's
was
called a schedule.
Let me finish now.
Schedule of activities.
Let me finish. That was where
Yes.
you put the notification
The
for
date for the
ad hoc delegates
Yes, correct.
nomination.
Yes, because schedule of
why,
activities.
Why didn't you just put that, the schedule of activities? Why didn't you send it in a letter to INEC in the same notification which you gave to them?
Well, maybe it was not there, but that does not invalidate what we have done. That's what I'm trying
Perhaps
to let you
not,
know.
but if we were to infer, because what has caused a lot of furore right now
Yes.
is inference. If we were to infer, could we say that APGA was trying to be mischievous?
No.
Or they didn't have anything to hide by not including that in the schedule of activities to INEC?
No, not at all. Why should we? He is the commissioner for information. Let me tell you, if you write anything that is adverse to the image of INEC tomorrow in the newspaper, he will respond to it. They read the papers, they see all these things. So trying to feign ignorance of that public notice now, unless it was put in writing to the commission specifically, is not being fair to APGA. Because we're not trying to hide anything.
Again, you still have not been able to say why, what the implication of your letter is, beyond saying we're not able to vouch and we're not able to verify that the election of ad hoc delegates was democratic. You have not said what the implication of that would be to APGA.
I think that they are the ones doing the interpretation, they are the ones doing the inference, and they are the ones they are the ones doing the speculation. We are not doing the speculation.
You have to say specifically what you intended to achieve with that letter.
We want, look, as at the time that particular letter was written, they also had a window. They had a window to rectify one or two things if they wanted to rectify something. Because, look, we are asked to vouch for something we knew nothing about. Somebody has written to us, a legal practitioner has written to the commission saying, please, can we have your report? And we said we don't have a report. We don't know, we are not aware.
Why didn't you just leave it at that?
Leave it at that. That's exactly, that's exactly what I said.
We are a regulatory. You're not writing to APGA to say, can we have a report?
Yes.
You are saying as a result of us not monitoring this, we cannot vouch for the democratic.
There are people that are mischievous in this matter.
No, the national chairman of APGA also wrote to us. He wrote to the commission.
He submitted delegate list.
No, just a minute.
Let him finish.
And his letter was dated dated the 16th day of June, saying forwarding of comprehensive list of delegates for the APGA primary election for Anambra State governorship election 2021. So he forwarded this particular list.
In compliance to your...
I'm coming.
In compliance to your request. 7 days to the primary.
And we said, we have seen this your list.
Yes.
We are not in a position to confirm under what circumstances and under what manner this list was generated and they emanated. Because under Section 85 of the Electoral Act, whether you are doing a meeting, whether you are doing a congress or a convention, so long as it revolves around the nomination of candidates, the commission is obligated to send monitors to go and monitor it, so that we will have a monitoring report and know what is going on in a political party.
Did you write it immediately he wrote this letter to you, or you waited for the lawyer to bring it to your attention first?
No. This letter was written on the 16th day of June 2021.
I mean the letter which you wrote to the INEC to the APGA chairman.
That's the one I'm reading. It was written on the 16th day of June 2021, and we responded on the 18th day of June 2021.
Okay.
So if this letter got out to the public, this letter was written to the national chairman of APGA. So I think that he should tell us who leaked the letter to the public.
The two letters came out together in the media.
Totally out of time. You have not been able to state specifically why that was not included in the schedule to INEC, and INEC has not been able to say specifically what it intended to achieve with the letter which it wrote.
We are a regulatory body. Political parties cannot regulate us. We will continue to regulate them.
It's a fine place to leave it. I think the public can make up their mind.
This thing was tried when I was chairman.
Mr. Festus Okoye, I think the most
now.
important thing is that INEC has said they're not disqualifying APGA from the elections.
And they should not make case for other people. You just write what you want and stop there.
The bone of contention here.
Allow other
but Mr.
people
Festus
to
Okoye,
complain.
National Commissioner, Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee at INEC, and Senator Victor Ome, former National Chairman of APGA. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on.
They should withdraw that letter.
Thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. We'll take a break at this point and we'll be back shortly. Please stay with us.
Well, yes, we're moving from politics to the economy. And as you've seen there, we've got Mr. Marcelo Keke joining us. He is an economist and also the lead consultant and CEO of Mascot Consults Limited. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, having listened to the president of the Senate saying the country has no option than to borrow to fund the budget. Is that right?
Let me put it this way. There's a background statement he made that Nigeria is a poor country. I want to start by disagreeing with him. Nigeria being poor, as he is saying, came from mismanagement of the economy. You know, for example, the thing that consumes the money that we have, which is our scarce foreign exchange earning from the sale of crude oil, so much of it goes into importation of refined, petroleum product, PMS, for example. If the refineries here are working, if the managers of this economy had been businesslike and kept the refineries running, would we be talking about importation of petroleum into this economy when we're a major oil producer? That That's just one question. So he is putting it in such a way that makes it look like we're already in a corner, that the only way out is to keep borrowing. We don't have to keep borrowing, because you get to a point that even those who want to lend up to us, we no longer lend, because we have the challenge of how to service the one we have borrowed. So it becomes an unsustainable arrangement. You have volume of debt that is gone, and you are saying more borrowing is the only option that you have. I tend not to agree with that. We have options, and the options are, if this economy is effectively diversified, you understand, then we will not have ourselves in a cul-de-sac, kind of, in a situation you have nowhere to turn to except to keep borrowing. Is that the way other economies are run? Borrowing, borrowing, and borrowing? No. And I don't think what he's saying agrees with what the Presidential Economic Advisory Council is saying, that we just keep borrowing ad infinitum. No, that is bad for this economy. Because as we speak now, it's becoming a challenge to service even the existing external debt.
So, but what about the caveat where he says that it's got to be responsible borrowing, and if they're borrowing to fund infrastructure development, and that in itself is also supposed to facilitate the revenue generation drive?
What is the meaning of responsible borrowing? We have all been in this economy for several decades, and we know the challenges that huge debt overhang constitute to this economy. You know where we are early in the from 1999 into year 2000 going forward, where we had huge debt, and the Obasanjo administration, led by Okonjo-Iweala at that time, had to do something to get debt write-off and debt forgiveness. And our external debt came down to as low as 3.3 billion. So it's always a problem when you have huge debt, because what that means is that the money you should have committed, to other developmental needs within the local economy, you commit it to servicing the debt and paying the debt. So talking about infrastructure development and all that, infrastructure development is a long-term thing. So if the government plans well, it will factor infrastructure development within its larger development plan. It will not be handled as an emergency, as he's putting it. So that the only option we have is to go and borrow. Other economies don't function that way, like I'm saying. The budget, for example, is an annual plan. Where is the long-term plan of the government? Where are they looking at 5 years? Where are they looking at 10 years? You understand? So that when all that is done, how to form such development, how to form such infrastructure development becomes an integral part of such a plan or such a development plan. Not to be running helter-skelter every time, looking for short-term money to borrow, so that you go and do infrastructure. Okay? Well, they are telling all this infrastructure, that's the government speaking. How are you sure when he says responsibly, when you say responsibility, when you have a loan that we facilitate that will run for 5 years, 10 years, and all that, what do you think is going to happen going forward, that those, the money that comes will be really handled responsibly, as the Senate President is saying? You have the human factor in it. We all know about the level of embezzlement here, mismanagement of public funds, and so on and so forth. And before you discover how the money has, been mismanaged and all that, it becomes something that happened several years ago. And the actors may have disappeared. I have this challenge of EFCC running everywhere trying to get these people. And the so-called infrastructure you're talking about, you see how shortly they are, executed or built. They will not be built to last, and yet the money is gone.
Right. So we have moved sort of into.
I don't fly with that.
Right. So we've moved sort of into the processes of control, monitoring, and the rest. We'll explore that. But it would seem that at least you agree with the President of the Senate that we don't have the resources, at least the revenues, would like to have to develop infrastructure, fund the budget, and the rest. And the part you disagree mainly is the part where the Senate president said Nigeria is poor. That was the term he used. If you were to describe Nigeria in your own words, then what would you say about the current stage Nigeria is in now?
The current stage in which we find ourselves is largely man-made. I put it to mismanagement of the economy.
Would you say Nigeria is rich? Nigeria is, well, semi-rich or semi-poor? What would you use?
It depends on what is indicator you're looking at. After all, by GDP, we are still the largest economy in Africa. So what am I talking about? And the major oil producer and exporter. What are you talking about? Okay? So what indicator is he using to talk about our poverty? Unless he's talking about GDP per capita because of our population. And then a very responsible government, I'm talking about government over the years, not just this current government, would have factored in the issue of population. You understand? And not allow a situation where our population is growing at 3-point-something% and the GDP is growing at less than 1%. You understand? That's what I'm telling you, it's man-made. So the issue of crying to the world that we are a poor country and because of that we have no option than to be borrowing from here and there. If as a poor country you keep borrowing, don't you think it gets a point that you are over-borrowed? Okay?
So,
and this issue of infrastructure, like I said, you don't just wake up one day and start talking about infrastructure. Nigeria did not start existing from today. We have been an independent country in the past 61 years or so. So why is the infrastructure issue suddenly becoming an excuse, for this massive borrowing, as he's saying? And that is the only option for us to fund infrastructure.
The context, I do understand your point. I mean, you say Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa. So clearly for you, you don't see Nigeria as poor from that perspective. Well, the context he used was our resources are so low. He spoke about revenues being so low. And so back to the point about borrowing. I know this debate has been ongoing for a while, different angles to it. But with the magnitude of infrastructure deficit we have in this country, put at billions of dollars to even get to a point where we can begin to say, well, we're approaching, well, some level of, some semblance of normalcy. There's a huge gap. How can we bridge that gap without, I mean, the Minister of Transport was talking about funding for the railway, for example, saying about $1.5 billion was borrowed, an agreement was signed, and Nigeria also provided some part of that funding. So there's some that we can give, and there's some that, well, according to the government, that we actually need to borrow. So how do we bridge that huge gap of infrastructure deficit, if not borrowing?
Well, I want to stress again that our only option is not borrowing. And you're talking about, resource shortage or something like that. Nigeria is richly endowed. And that has been our unique selling point as a country over the years. We are richly endowed. Whether you are talking about, human resources, whether you are talking about solid mineral, whether you are talking about oil, whether you are talking about gas, and so on and so forth. So how come we are at this point in time just wringing our hands, talking about poverty as the excuse to keep borrowing? I really don't agree with that. Something has to be done so that these resources I've mentioned to you will be explored and exploited so that we have money to push ourselves out of poverty, the poverty trap we are talking about. You understand? So we just cannot succumb to that kind of impression and perception that we're a poor country. And so the only way to move forward is to keep borrowing. It is dangerous. It's a dangerous way to go. It's a dangerous way to go.
I think you're saying if I can understand your point, I think there are two different things which I think you're trying to point out. We're richly endowed on the one hand, but at the moment, when he says revenue is low, you say it's as a result of mismanagement. But what do you make of this World Poverty Clock when he says Nigeria currently has the largest number of poor people in sub-Saharan Africa, estimating about 105 million people are living in extreme poverty. That's as of 2020. So will this narrative kind of validate what he says by saying, look, at the moment, revenue is low, we're poor, and then you think richly endowed. So aren't they two separate things there?
Can you ask the question, how did we get to this debacle? How did we get to here as a country? You understand? To be now the country with the largest population of poor people. How did we get here? You understand? That is why we have what is called economic planning, development planning. Development planning will now include every facet of human being, every aspect of life, including taking care of the population growth we are talking about, including taking care of education, including taking care of food production, including the security situation we are talking about, including everything. You understand? So if there has been such a plan in place, or if the government is thinking, the big picture, the way I'm talking about it over the years, we will not be here. So talking about, resource endowment, such resource endowment should be turned into money. And you have money, to the extent that, talking about borrowing will be the last issue we talk about. And if you are borrowing, it will be an insignificant, portion of what you need to do the infrastructure I talk about. Let me also ask you, why do we have challenge with PPP, private-public partnership, in the infrastructure thing? Why do we have challenge? Don't you know that is what is happening in other clients? It's an option rather than borrowing everything 100%, like you are being told. People cannot come for PPP because the government itself appears not to have been honest with people who came around for such PPP. I don't want to go into mentioning such experiences before, but some people who came in to invest here through PPP, many of them had their fingers burnt and went away. So that's why government or whoever is telling us that the only option we have is to keep borrowing. No, PPP, huge infrastructure projects are better or best handled through PPP. You understand? So Nigeria is not an island or should not be an island unto itself. The rest, we have examples, whether in West Africa or Africa or the rest of the world, how these infrastructures are done. You ask yourself, must it just be known that other countries are getting?
Well, we do know that a few roads recently were listed by the Ministry of Works as a federal Ministry of Works. Mr. Okeke, I don't know if you can hear me. We do know that a few roads were listed recently by the Federal Ministry of Works as roads that the federal government was going to partner with the private sector on. I want to believe that is that sort of a partnership you're making reference to. However, when we look at where the large amounts of money which we have borrowed in recent times, where we have spent them, I'm going to ask you whether you are impressed as to where we have spent this money, because for a number of people, their issue is not exactly with borrowing. Their issue is where you're spending the monies you have borrowed and how you intend to pay back. So we've spent a huge number of the monies we've borrowed on rail infrastructure and a number of other infrastructure, some of them mostly doing with transport, and a number of other maybe security infrastructure as well. Are you impressed with where we've spent this monies, and are you confident that looking at where we have invested the money, we will be able to pay back?
Thank you for that question. As an economist, we usually don't look at this and come up with position in the short term per se, because over time you see things changing. So the picture you are painting of those infrastructure projects that are completed or commissioned, let us see how things play out over time, the next 1 year, the next 2 years, and all that, and see how they are run, so that the much expected return on investment, will materialize, and from which you now use to service the loans. Is that not what we're talking about? So let us see how those things are run. And the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years will now improve the quality of the infrastructure you are talking about that is put in place. As it is now, the whole thing may just, be flashy. You are looking at them and you say, wonderful, excellent. But by the time, over the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we now see whether they are built to last, and then how they are run to realize this money you are talking about to service those loans. But our experience in this economy, I must tell you again, is that these things don't last. If they have been lasting, I don't see why they will be in this kind of crisis of borrowing so much to be doing the same project we are talking about. Does it mean we have not been having roads in Nigeria? Does it mean those roads have not been built?
Legitimate and they're valid. I mean, they're
Does it
within
mean
the context. So
they have not
the
been
question we
run
also
by
have asked
people?
is, before we borrow this money, is knowing that this is where we wanted to spend them and knowing our penchant for not being able to maintain infrastructure when we build them. Shouldn't we have asked these questions before the investment was made? Why do we have to wait and see after the monies have been invested already to see how we eventually keep them?
You see, we are talking about human factor. We are talking about human factor. The quality of the infrastructure you are talking about is partly and largely a function of people who are in position at that point in time, you understand, and how they go on executing these things. Don't you know that some people in Nigeria, without you knowing, find themselves colluding, that with their creditors. It has happened in the past. Colluding with their creditors. And so a huge chunk of the money you think is borrowed, goes somewhere. I don't want to accuse any person. But we have been in this economy, like I said, in the past 60 years. Okay? If things were working out the way we are saying, just borrow, build this infrastructure, Nigeria will not be where we are today. I remember in 1991, the person that was Minister of Finance that time was Olufalaye. And my organization, we had a seminar and invited him to speak on the Nigerian debt question. So as at that time, the challenge this economy at that time was that the so-called huge external borrowing could not be accounted for. Even to trace who took what, it became so difficult. Let us believe that this is the 20th century and that people are now better at, putting these things in shape and accounting for them and so on and so forth. But still, I am a bit worried because of the human factor. When things are presented to be so beautiful at the beginning and all that, will these things last? That's why we are talking about sustainability. Will they be sustainable? And if you are talking about borrowing and building this, do you believe that at any point in time, money you have borrowed will lift us, from where we are to the level of infrastructure that we need in this economy, given who we are and the people that run and manage these things? Why will our refineries be shut down? Is it not the same?
The main question I'm posing to you is what safeguards we could have put in place, or what safeguards we can put in place, knowing our weaknesses, knowing our past experience with borrowing.
Let me tell you, what we should do is to reduce our dependence on external borrowing for our infrastructure need. And for us to do that, the resource endowment I have mentioned here should be developed within the context of a proper development plan. You understand? So when we do that over time, this economy is an integrated whole. So if you are doing well in terms of diversified economy, money will be coming from various sources. And you will not be going cap in hand, borrowing all the time. You understand? So when these things are done simultaneously, the economy will be moving. But when a part of the economy is working, like we are now talking about borrowing and you are building road, building this, building that. Even when you build the road and whatever you are building, and at this level of insecurity in the land, do you think you will attract local and foreign investors? I want to leave at that question. Thank you.
All right, then, Drew, thank you very much indeed for your response today. Mr. Marcelo Cook is an economist, and also he's the, we did that earlier on. So thank you very much indeed for your thoughts today. So there you go, gentlemen. So quite a number of issues right there. So we'll just be back in a moment and take a look at some of the comments coming through from you. Don't go away. All right, Victor says, talking about Nigeria and external loans, I find it really amazing that Nigeria sells crude oil to nations of the world who use the crude oil bought to develop their countries, while we, the seller, remain poor and underdeveloped, and then go begging. I don't understand this. I remember one time in this country where a leader said, We've got so much money, we don't know how to spend it. Did it actually say that? And it says, we see today that we know how to spend it, but we spend it wrongly. We're not poor. We are poor in our management of the country's resources. So I do not agree with the Senate President. But Marley said in the song, Rat Race, that in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty.
Dr. Pemosa talks about Nigeria and external borrowing, saying that Nigeria needs to develop a language of numbers in decision and policy prescriptions. Our leaders should accommodate shared imagination in tackling the country's problems. It is not entirely true that borrowing is the only solution to Nigeria's problem. We can engage development through productive public-private partnerships in leveraging our resources within and outside Nigeria. Okay.
And talking about APGA ad hoc delegates, Chinwe Ike says everyone in Anambra knows there was no Congress before APGA ad hoc delegates were formed. There was therefore nothing for INEC to monitor.
I'm disgusted by the refusal of APGA to have followed what is considered a normal, simple procedure. I hope it does not hurt them.
Well, Imokai Omiogbemi says INEC for me is really creating the template for a very messy litigation on the Anambra election. INEC should not be answering questions not asked.
And Joseph Amenao says it does appear that INEC is joining the fray here and stirring the pot with a mix of combustible ingredients. It seems INEC is approaching its regulatory work with dogmatic rigidity.
Well, Pastor Sam says INEC should take responsibility that they erred by not attending the Congress because the information was published in 2 newspapers as required. Every institution have their media department that keep their ears to the ground to get information concerning them in order to process it for their use. It is also clear that at the time the publication was made in the newspapers, the media department was asleep or they just ignored it. I say to APGA, take the necessary action going forward and even inform INEC about their lunch and dinner meeting. It is important also to confirm the intention of the legal practitioners who wrote and also his personality, as rightly mentioned by me, but Dr. Koye didn't answer.
Wow, that would be interesting. Inform INEC about your dinner and lunch. Well, Henry, still on that Anambra governorship election, or at least the build-up to it, says Anambra State is undoubtedly both the light and pride of the nation, given the gargantuan intellectual resources and the ingenuity of her indigents since history. However, electioneering processes in the state generate so much smoke without a real inferno. Nigeria should rest assured that all is well, or all's well will end well come November.
Wow. Can you imagine how much the tech sector can generate for this country if we just leverage on that? I mean, individuals are making much more than states.
Imagine that.
These days. Well, so there you go. So we need to just look inwards, introspect, and see how it could develop. Well, that is it today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain also.
I'm Kayode Okikulu.
I can't get over the fact that we get such a deluge of mails from you all. Thank you so much. We have not been able to take half of it. But hopefully, who knows, maybe one day we'll be dedicated to just mails from you guys. Thank you and have a lovely weekend. I'm Mark Welgun Yusuf.
The following